think my rap name will be MC Thunder Thighs. This is Cory, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Whoa, good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob.
Oh.
Cory's spitting fire, and I'm freezing my ass off. So,
well, you're not freezing your ass off. You're in the middle of the Dominican Republic right now.
Not the middle. I'm on the coast of the Dominican
Well, you're
Republic.
in the Dominican Republic. You're thick in the middle of warm weather.
The average temperature this time of year is like 80 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be nice.
Because what we did, if you didn't notice, is I've used some of my Hollywood trickery. We've green screened Rob and put him in where he usually is in the studio.
Right. Yeah.
So that we could do this live. He's graciously taken a little bit of time away from his vacation.
Note my gorgeous tan.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm sweating because I put on a jacket. And
He's wearing the jacket just for show. We're doing this thing like you're used to, because we don't want to offend the sensibilities of the people
right, of course,
who are used to it a certain way. Like,
right, yes. And to the new viewers that may not know, this is in fact what we do. So even if we're not available, you went to Yellowstone. Yeah. Got a show. Yeah. Live show. I went to Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Florida, Ocean City. Okay, so I've done a little bit of traveling. And still live shows. 93 consecutive weeks. Mm-hmm. 94. This will be 94 consecutive weeks of live shows. And we do it all for you.
We do indeed.
Yeah.
So welcome, especially to Rob in Puerto Rico. Or the Dominican Republic. Yeah.
Sorry, that was last year. Puerto Rico was last year.
I get confused by your tropical getaways. Please excuse me.
Yes.
It's hard to guess what's outside the window right now.
Right. Yeah.
Because I haven't been outside. I've been locked away.
Right.
I'm not working every single day, so there's no reason for me to go outside and see.
Of course not.
But it's either epic snow or nothing.
Right.
That's basically how Maryland works.
Yes. Yeah.
Last year, during the winter, I was getting probably once every week and a half a doomsday prediction from a weatherman.
Yes.
Like, prepare yourself. It's going to be 13 feet of snow on the ground when you wake up in the morning. And then you're laying out all your clothes, like your 15 layers of clothes and your boots and your everything. And you're like, all right, snow's not going to get me. And then you walk outside and it's just like mild rain.
60 degrees and mild rain.
75 degrees and rain. And you're just like, And not even like heavy rain. It's just light, like...
Well, and so I posted on Instagram, and if you're not following me, you should, at Robert N. Cheek, at LegendCB5 on Instagram.
At the Anthem.
And at the Anthem.
Mobby nominated.
We'll get to that. But no, so I posted last year because they were predicting like a foot of snow, and they canceled school 2 days early. And I walk out, and is there any snow on the ground? Nope. Mm-mm. It's raining. Nope. And I'm like, I remember posting on Instagram, this is why the Chinese are beating us. Because we cancel for the thought of snow instead of waiting for the actual snow.
It's kind of indistinguishable whether it's cold enough for snow outside right now.
It's close.
It's on the edge.
The thing I love about it though, the WBOC, the Eastern Shore TV station. The weatherman came out at 6, and I saw the cut video of it, which was great. He comes out at like 6:30, and he gives his weather report, and he's like, listen, there's a lot of hype around this snowstorm. Don't expect any more than a dusting. Don't buy into the hype. And then the Euro models came out at 6:45, and he came back on at 7, and like, so I gotta renew my... the Euro models say 12 inches.
Here's the deal with last year's snow. They kept predicting like an epic snowstorm, like 2 feet of snow. It's happening, absolutely for sure. Don't question us. They would cancel school. We'd go outside. It'd be rain.
Right.
It'd be 50 degrees and rain.
Right.
And then eventually it was like kind of like the boy who cried wolf after like 10 consecutive weeks of people going like, that snow is coming.
It's definitely going to be
It's definitely coming this weekend and coming out to rain. Everyone in Maryland just sort of collectively was just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then the weatherman hit us with one of their like, and it was about this time last year because
while I was on vacation, I think.
I bought my car. I traded in the Subaru with its all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, we got hit with like 4 feet of snow in an afternoon, and it took me 5 hours to get home from work.
I do remember that.
It took me 5 hours to go 11 miles.
That was while I was gone because I dropped off my car. Or no, the night that I left. I was worried about getting snowed in, having the plane get snowed in. But apparently the storm like pushed a little bit. And then on my way to the airport, it started snowing. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Let's get this bitch out of here.
Yeah.
And
Can we leave early?
And we left, and then snow dumped. So, by the way, if you want snow in Maryland, apparently Rob needs to go someplace warm. Because that's the key.
All right, so let's all start a fund that keeps Rob from going places.
No, we need the opposite of that. You can get off work, and it'll be great.
We'll call it the Rob Money Fund, and it'll just give Rob money so he stays here.
The Human Fund. A fund for people.
I just... I'm a little bit worried that we just got completely rammed by the weather.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, there's also the... I think the problem with Maryland, though, is that if it's 2 inches of snow, people treat it just the same as if it's 2 feet of snow.
Yeah, well, lose their minds. Yeah.
When it was
milky bread guy.
When it was 2 feet of snow, and it took me 5 hours to get home, there was no rules. Law did not apply. There were people like driving over elderly people going like, whatever, I'm going home. Driving down the wrong ways of the street.
Mad Max Fury Road. Baltimore.
Just one guy on the top of the thing playing guitar feverishly.
But meanwhile, by the way, works the opposite way too. Because if you remember 2009, when we moved into the apartment in Ridgely's Delight.
I remember it well.
They were saying, oh, listen, it's gonna rain a little bit, and we were like, well, should we put off the move? What should we do? And then they're like, there's no chance of snow. They're saying it's rain, and then
it's gonna pass. They kept saying like it's gonna pass.
I get on the Bay Bridge in the U-Haul truck, and it's like blowing, and there's rain or there's snow coming down, and I'm like, this was a horrible idea. And snowpocalypse.
Yeah.
And it turned into back-to-back-to-back snowstorms over the course of like 16 days.
That snowpocalypse was something too, because I remember that the 2 trees fell on each end of Ridgely's Delight.
Blocked us.
So you couldn't get out.
Not that we could get out anyway because of the snow.
I mean, like, you couldn't drive your car out of the neighborhood.
Right.
And then I kept saying, like, I was calling up work going, like, I can't make it. And they're just like, just drive out. I'm just like, I can't. The entire place is blocked off. I can't get out with my car. And they're just like, can you take the light rail? And I was just like, let me look into it. And then they were just like, the closest light rails, like, everything south of, like, Cold Spring was shut down.
Yeah.
And I was just like... do you want me to walk the, 5 miles to Cold Spring in the snow just to get to the light rail and then get there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? No, go fuck yourself.
That's what I do when I do that. Come pick me up. You get yourself in your 4x4 and you come downtown and pick me up and I'll show up at work. That's what I'll do. But that was also, because I think the tree stayed down for a while. Eventually, when they reopened the light rail, you were using the light rail to get to work for a couple of days. And that was the start of never again. Never again will I use the light rail. It's fucking pointless. Doesn't run on time.
Here's the story about the light rail. My car broke down. I know. Newsflash.
The old car, though.
The
new car is really good.
Yeah. Well, this was even the old car. This was the Eclipse.
Right. Yeah.
The Eclipse broke down. And I had to take the light rail to work for a week.
Yeah.
Because I dropped it off at the shop, and they were just like, ooh, this is going to take a while, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whatever. So I took the light rail to work for a week. I had to be at work at 7.
Yeah.
And from the times that I had taken the light rail from Timonium to... Baseball games.
Yeah.
It was like 45 minutes ride. So I said to myself, like, all right, if I'm there at 6, if I'm at the light rail at 6, then I should get to Cockeysville by about 7.
Right. and then
they're aware of the fact that I'm taking the light rail. So if I'm late, they're not going to give me crap about it. Blah blah blah.
And by the way, the first train runs at like 5:40. So you weren't on the very first train. You were very close. To
it runs earlier than that, I think.
I thought for some reason that it wasn't running any earlier than that.
No. I in fact actually know it runs earlier than that because the first day I went, I was at the light rail at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Got on the light rail, and then I didn't get to work till 8.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so it's going to take longer than I thought it would.
Right.
So tomorrow I have to be out here at 5 to get there on time.
Yeah.
I show up at 5. Guess what time I get there?
7:30.
8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I started saying to them, like, I said, like, listen, I'm going to come to work when I can. This thing is completely unpredictable. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to get anywhere.
Stay late.
I'm not waking up any earlier than 5 a.m. to get here.
Right.
So I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 7 and get on the light rail, and I'll just be here when I be here.
Right. And what time did you get there when you left at 7?
Or at 6?
Oh, yeah, 6, yeah.
I got there at 7.
Right.
On the third day. And I'm just like, where's the logic? Where's the...
Because it literally is passenger driven. Like, if people take forever to get off and get on, you just sit there.
And it sits at fucking lights!
The lights!
It sits at lights!
It's a train!
Part of the reason why I never respected anybody's propositions for the red line was because the light rail that we have is fucking horrible.
But the red line was
it's perfectly fine for getting, like, if you need to get from point A to point B and you don't have a car.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's not a reliable...
On the one axis of Baltimore, though.
Right.
If you work at Johns Hopkins and you live in Ridgely's Delight, there's a bit of a walk on both ends of those.
Yeah.
But it can get you vertically through, or north-south through the city.
Right.
Or to the airport, which is the only reason I ever use it. Or to baseball games. Because it does drop off.
But I think there was once where the light rail shut down because there was a traffic light out.
Oh, yeah. So you can't have the train running.
And the train couldn't run because the traffic light was out. And it was just like...
Oh, no, it runs.
Are we mad?
It runs to the
south, light and then stops.
No, to the station to the south of that and the station to the north of that. And then you ride up to the closest, get out, walk back to the next station, and then jump on. This is not how a modern city runs public transportation. Buses, though, are even worse because they don't go anywhere that makes sense.
You know the bullet train in Tokyo?
Yeah.
That if it's late by more than 5 minutes... They give you a note to give to your employer apologizing for you being late.
That it's their fault for being late.
I'm sorry he's more than 5 minutes late. The bullet train wasn't on time.
Right.
And it's like a 98% within... They say it's like 98% on time.
Right.
But that 98% on time is anywhere from like the time that it's supposed to be there to like 2 minutes out of time.
Right.
The 5 minutes one is like 99.9% of the time. It's never more than 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
Like, we need this kind of efficiency. We don't need taking 2-hour light rails for a 45-minute ride.
Save us, Elon Musk, and your Hyperloop. I am so excited for the Hyperloop. I hope that it actually becomes a thing. Because it would be so nice to... And, by the way...
and for just the Baltimore to D.C. portion of it...
Oh, yeah.
Where, like, we could get there in, like, 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Like... It would change the game for...
But, are
like
you talking about the Hyperloop or the bullet train that they're putting here?
I guess the bullet train I was thinking of. But, like, the Hyperloop, they're talking about doing the, like, one up the West Coast and one up the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the West Coast one was, like, L.A. to...
San Francisco. Or
San Francisco and, like...
Santa Clara County.
Right. But, like, it was, like, 3 hours or something like that.
Yeah. An 8-hour drive, though.
Right. That's something I can get behind.
Yeah.
And I would pay the premium for that, as long as it's not more expensive than flying.
And, hey, idiots, we don't like the Acela train now. Don't stop every 15 miles. Because then being a bullet train doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And Elon said, like, the whole point of it is there are nexuses that we travel high speed between. And then you, ideally, in the future, will go to your local station. that will take you to a
Nexus station.
A semi-Nexus station, which will take you to a Nexus station. And we can replace all public transportation because you can go from local to local, from local to semi-Nexus back out to a different local. And then if you need to cover big distances, you get on the Nexus point and then go between. And when you get there, you go back to the semi-Nexus to the local. It'd be like the New York subway, but across the entire country.
Well, it would be nice if Baltimore was included in that.
Well, and right now it's just the stretch from L.A. to Santa Clara.
Right, but I'm saying, like, in a hypothetical... Like, say it goes from... If they do an East Coast one where it goes from, like, Boston to Miami or something like that, like, you would... Obviously, New York would be included. Philadelphia would be included.
I think Baltimore would.
You think Baltimore would be included, not just D.C., and then you take another train from D.C. to Baltimore?
No, I think it's a big enough distance, because what you need is... I think that you need 25 miles to get up to full speed and slow down.
Right.
Full speed. So there is... Well, depending on where in Baltimore it is, my suggestion would probably be West Baltimore to somewhere... probably in the Virginia suburbs, but and then you take the local back into actual DC. You're looking at like 100 miles, so that's enough stretch that you could get up to speed and get back down to speed and cruise speed for a while. So
fair enough.
But no, what are they going to do with the bullet train that they're building? The maglev train. Because that's going just from D.C. to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And it's going to take the same amount to speed up and slow down. I think actually the Hyperloop's faster at the speed up and slow down than the maglev train. But I heard an interesting thing that said that we should take some of these vacants and just plow them and make that the straight shot through West Baltimore. Make a station somewhere close to where 40 dumps out, where they have the MARC train now.
Yeah.
And then just blaze a trail straight through all of these abandoned houses and through West Baltimore, and create green space around it, and have the train there. And I mean, I have that's a good offer to me. I don't really know, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think that I'd be interested to know what's going to happen with all the vacant space that gets taken over by green space with this whole plan, this 5-year plan.
It won't. That's they keep saying green space. It won't happen. What they'll do is
that's what they were talking about with Detroit.
Yeah.
Is like turning all these vacants into green space, and then it didn't happen.
Right. Well, we saw it. It was semi-green, but the problem is they would not kick people out. So you would have one person stay in a block, and then with that one person who stayed blocks them from clearing out the whole space. So, I mean, it's for what it's worth. Yeah, it's great. It's a great idea. I think cities with green spaces are great. London, you ever been to London? Mm-hmm. So where like literally there is a green space every couple of blocks, and they build these neighborhoods where it's like houses around a green space, and I think that builds community. But Baltimore's not really one for community, so it's unfortunate. But
well, it's a city of neighborhoods.
City, yeah, where you go from $100,000 houses, you cross a street and it's $10,000 houses. The one thing about driving Uber in Baltimore is weird. Is like I have those people who must be like, I only take certain places. How the fuck do you do that?
Yeah,
because you got to be like it gives you a general area of where the pickup is. That could be the guy at the mansion, or it could be just slightly down the hill to the guy who's sleeping on a park bench or under the bridge. You never know. But anyway. So we kind of skipped over to the beginning, so let's go over now. An update, week 2, on our social media. Once again, we are encouraging you to go out to find Oh the Anthem on Twitter, Mobby-nominated Twitter, Mobby-nominated Instagram, Facebook page, YouTube page. We're trying to get our subscriber numbers up and follower numbers up. So we've seen an uptick just in the last couple of days. That's great. Thank you guys for joining us on those networks. Just to give you an update, we are at 168 Facebook followers. Mm-hmm. And that's Oh the Anthem on Facebook. You can also follow the Oh the Anthem digital page. You can also follow Cory's personal page. I accept all friend requests from people who aren't Nigerian princes. But everybody else I accept.
Assuming you have like some history on Facebook, yeah. I accept you.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it looks like you just created the profile today, I don't.
Yes.
That's basically my rule.
And I also have a rule about beautiful women. If your profile picture is a little too hot, I don't believe for a second you're a real person.
Well, you have to have some sort of like history to prove Like, if it's just a beautiful woman and all you have is a profile picture, no.
Not getting approved.
Nope.
But the Anthem takes all followers, no matter what.
We don't even care.
So just come in and like the page.
If you need to get in touch with us, just do it there.
Yes. Followers on Twitter, we are up to 240 on Twitter followers. So thank you guys for joining us on Twitter. That's at The Anthem on Twitter.
Mobby-nominated Twitter.
Mobby-nominated Twitter. At LegendCB5. At Robert N. Cheek. So make sure you join us there. On Instagram, we are up to 73 followers. So again, at The Anthem. At Robert N. Cheek. What's yours?
At LegendCB5.
Is it on Instagram too? Okay, good. And then finally, most importantly, I think for our purposes here, you're enjoying the video. We're seeing that people are watching the video. Make your life easier. Subscribe to the Anthem YouTube account. And then when you're bored or whatever else, you log on to YouTube. It'll pop up right there at the top. Here, look at one of your subscribers has updated. And there
or on that sidebar there, you'll see
right.
You've missed 2 videos from The Anthem, and you can just click on it and see what they are. And
of course, because of the beautiful sidebar over to Cory's left-hand side, or Cory's right, your left as you're watching, you'll be able to skip just to the portions that you want to hear. So hopefully, we hope you listen to the whole thing, but if you're only here to listen to a part, that's your option there. We're up to 40 subscribers on YouTube. That's 3, 4 more than we had last week. So thank you guys for stepping up and joining us. We are super excited. And it makes it easier for you to see. We had a nice little witty banter today on Twitter about the Queen of Dundalk.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't quite. I saw the first tweet that started it, but I didn't really like.
So did you see my tweet before that?
Actually, that was obviously a week ago because
clearly a week
Rob's
ago.
in the Dominican Republic.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Did you see the first one I posted where I didn't tag anybody?
No.
All right, so in this one...
All I saw, the only one I saw was the one where you tagged City That Breeds.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so basically on this week's episode of City That Breeds, everybody should check out that podcast. Love the guys over at City That Breeds. That they had... they were doing karaoke, but like faking a Baltimore accent and like what songs would be funny. And then the guy drops into Bohemian Rhapsody and he's faking the accent and it's hilarious. And then I'm like, you know what would be even funnier than that? A real person from Dundalk singing that song. Luckily, I'm familiar with the Queen of Dundalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Rachel Sandridge on Twitter.
I have a personal connection with the Queen of Dundalk, so...
A little too personal. But you are the... it's not a concierge, it's the...
What's the name of the Queen Elizabeth's...
Yeah, it's like a lady in waiting. Is that what you are? Kind of like a lady in waiting.
I'm the Charles to her die.
Yeah, you're like a Jafar. You're the Grand Vizier.
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
Queen of Dundalk.
Right.
So we are hopefully going to make that happen. I really want to see somebody with a deep Baltimore accent singing Bohemian Rhapsody. That's going to make my dreams come true.
Well, I love... I think it was Rouse and Company started it. There was... somebody in the Baltimore accent doing Walking in a Winter Wonderland.
Oh, that would be another good one.
It was always hilarious. It was like the "Ew, what you doing? The snow is falling."
So not only is Cory spitting hot bars in a rap, he also sings in a Baltimore accent.
By the way, I'm sure if comments take off on that, I'll explain it there too. But for anybody who heard that, that was something I wrote when I was probably like 16 years old.
Spitting fire.
And I was like, oh, this seems like a pretty funny rap. And I'm surprised I remembered so much of it.
It was good, though. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I might incorporate that into my own rap album.
Steal it.
Yeah, I'm totally going to steal it. I'm going to Haxby it. That's what I'm
going
to do. Yeah. But thank you guys for joining us on social media. You're missing out on so much stuff if you don't find us on there. What you enjoy here back and forth, we do in a written format on Twitter, back and forth with comments on pictures on Instagram. Join us there, The Anthem, at Robert and Cheek, at LegendCB5 on all those.
And obviously, we are a audio podcast.
Right.
I mean, there is the video.
There's the video aspect, yeah.
If you want to subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, Dogcatcher, wherever your RSS feed of choice is, subscribe. And if there's the ability to rate, just give us a rating because it helps other people find us. So if you like us, rate. If you don't, then I assume you hate listening,
which I'm fine with.
At which point, just send any negative comments you might have directly at the source of that, which is at Robert N. Cheek on Twitter.
I survive off of your hate. Send me all of your hate messages. I'm totally fine with that.
Rob is basically a member of the Player Haters Ball from Chappelle's Show.
Basically, yeah, that's actually right. Or
please excuse me, because I gotta go put more water in Buck Nasty's mother's dish.
Well, I was gonna say, or the other likelihood is that I may be chosen to be the captain of the NHL All-Star Hockey team.
Oh, I can't. This story is so good to me. And here's the thing: I was telling Rob about this before we started. And I started with NHL.
Yeah.
And he immediately started doing his like, oh, God, NHL.
Yeah. So
I was
don't
like, no. Just listen. This is an incredible story. It just happens to be about the NHL. Don't tune out if you're not an NHL fan.
So you're
going to enjoy this regardless.
It's a fuck the system story more than an NHL story, which is why I enjoy it. So go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
catch us up. So first of all, let's start out with from the beginning. Who is it? What's going on? For those of us who have lives and don't care about hockey.
John Scott is an enforcer of the Phoenix Coyotes for this story.
Okay. And for those of us who don't watch hockey...
Phoenix is a city in Arizona.
Okay.
Coyotes is the name of their team.
And an enforcer is...
An enforcer is basically... say a player on the opposing team gives your star player a hard check into the glass.
Right.
And you feel like you've been besmirched.
With no penalty.
Yeah, no penalty, or that it was an unnecessarily rough hit, or that it's payback for something else that happened.
Right.
There's a guy who sits at the end of the bench, a goon, who's called the enforcer. And it's not like a position. He'll be like a left wing or a right wing or a center or something like that, or a defenseman. But he's the enforcer.
He's got a big E on his jersey.
Who basically just comes out and starts fights.
Right.
So he's the designated guy who picks a fight, pulls the jersey over the guy's head, gives him a couple in the ribs, and then sits in the penalty box.
Right. The guy who has more penalty minutes than goals at the end of the season.
John Scott, in 8 NHL seasons, has 11 points.
Right.
Now, points are assists and goals. He has 1 career goal.
Yeah.
That's the only time he's ever... 10 assists and 1 goal in...
And an entire
8 seasons.
Entire game spent in the penalty box over 8 seasons.
Basically. I mean, Alexander Ovechkin scored 2 goals on the game that we went to go see him.
Right.
Just to give you an idea of, the goals are scored in this league.
And for others who still are unclear, if you remember the Mighty Ducks series, they had the Bash brothers.
Yeah.
And one of those guys couldn't skate backwards, couldn't turn. All he could do was skate in a straight line.
Right.
And so he would line up and then just skate at the guy, and then bang him up against the boards.
That's basic, because John Scott's not an exceptional athlete.
Right.
He's slow. He's mostly strong and fights people. That's his goal.
He's a boxer on skates.
Yeah. Beyond that, he's he's one of the lesser players in the league. Like, we make fun of Flaherty.
Right.
As being a terrible player on the Orioles.
Well, I would say he's
still better than us.
You or I play baseball? Right.
He's still a better baseball player than us, but in terms of MLB, he's one of the worst players in the league.
In fact, his WAR is
exactly.
Really low. Yeah.
But so John Scott's a similar type of hockey player. He's one of the lesser guys in the league. Yeah. He's been cut 3 times so far this season, like sent to the minors, brought back.
Yeah.
He averages 11 minutes a game. He's not a good player,
right?
As we would designate somebody of skill.
He's no Ovechkin.
Yeah. And that's why it's a really interesting story that he got voted by the fans to be the captain for one of the divisions in the Western Conference for the NHL All-Star Game.
Right.
You might be saying to yourself, how does this happen? Basically, how this happens is the NHL hates its fans.
Right.
The NHL All-Star Game is just the biggest joke of all the All-Star games. Right. People say the NFL players don't want to play in the Pro Bowl because it's the end of the season and they don't want to get hurt, and they just sort of want to get out.
A lot of the people elected are either played last week in the playoffs or are playing in the Super Bowl, so then they don't play.
Right.
But they treat it as a joke, as it should be.
And they play half speed because they don't want to get hurt, and it's very clearly a half speed game.
If you go back to our discussion about the MLB All-Star Game, though, again, NFL happens at the end of the season. MLB is in the middle, just like the NHL, but there's something at risk.
Yeah.
It's very important that we get the home field advantage.
The NHL All-Star Game has nothing at risk.
Right.
It's a straight exhibition. None of the players want to be there. None of the players want to get hurt.
Right.
Almost universally, all of them would rather just have the weekend off in the middle of the season to recuperate. But the NHL... if you get elected to the All-Star Game, then you have to be there all weekend. You have to go to all these corporate functions. You have to play in the game. You have to do the skills competition. It's a lot of, I know everyone's going to say well, these hockey players get paid, $10 million a season. They should go to the All-Star Game and care. But, it'd be like if you're at work and somebody says you have to work this weekend, even though you had the weekend off.
Right.
And you're just well, I don't really want to work this weekend. I had plans. And it's just nope. Sorry. You want a job here. You got to work, same sort of.
And I think it's missing NBA does the same thing, and players don't really want to play, but they have the other exhibitions within the game that people want to do.
Right.
Slam dunk competition, 3-point competition.
Well, and the NBA as well. Part of what makes it easier for the NBA and the Major League Baseball All-Star Game is that they're going... you don't have to go full speed to put on a good show.
Right, yeah.
In the NBA All-Star Game, they don't play defense.
No, it's all offense.
All offense.
Yeah.
People just having fun with it.
Right. Alley-oops.
Yeah,
nonsense. It's a Globetrotters game.
Right, exactly.
With two good teams on either side.
Right. The NHL All-Star Game, they don't... hockey is not fun when it's not played at full intensity.
Right.
And that's been part of the problem. Also... between lockouts and the Olympics and other things of that nature, there's only been 5 NHL All-Star Games in the last 10 years.
Right.
So there's no consistency. And then when there have been All-Star Games, the NHL, because it hates its fans, has consistently eliminated more and more of the fans' rights to the game.
Right.
So...
well, and to compare, again, to the MLB, people might be more familiar, we vote. MLB players in.
Right.
And NHL has slowly but surely taken that away.
So the in the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, you vote for all the starters.
Right, yeah.
And then the, general managers and players and coaches, they fill out the rest of the team.
And make sure somebody from every team is going.
Right, make sure that everything is done. But the hockey rosters are smaller.
Right.
And if you have to put 15 teams on each side... you're quickly eliminating the ability to put players who are deserving to be on the game because you got to put somebody from the Carolina Hurricanes in it,
right. And the lines are small, and a lot of the star players play the same position. So how many centers can you have?
Right, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then the NHL had a big problem when they did let the fans have votes, where they would be all right, fans can vote for the starting lineups like they do in the MLB All-Star Game, NHL All-Star Game, or all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
All the other All-Star games. And then predominant fan bases would just take it over. So there was one year where it was 5 people from the Pittsburgh Penguins and 5 people from the Chicago Blackhawks who started against each other in the NHL All-Star Game.
Yeah.
So 5 of the 6 players on each conference were from one team.
So it's those teams playing each other for the first shift.
Right. And it grew old. And it's been a horrible bore for a very long time. So, the NHL fans, who are, to the sport, probably the most loyal of any sport.
Right.
Sort of between the combination of podcasts and blogs and Reddit and all the other places where the fans sort of interact with one another, this John Scott for the NHL All-Star Game started picking up.
Well, and explain, because how is the voting coming into play this year?
So... the fans could only vote for the captains of the 4 divisions.
Right.
So there's 4 divisions, 2 conferences. What they're going to do this year is they're going to do a 3-on-3 tournament where the 2 divisions in the Western Conference and the 2 divisions in the Eastern Conference play each other, and then the winner of those two conference battles plays in a final.
Right.
It's a 20-minute game, 3-on-3, so it should be very exciting, very fast, very, like, there's not a lot of... It's going to be a lot of action.
Ovechkin's going to try and score all the goals in his 20-minute exhibition.
Right.
Because he's going to get elected, by the way.
He's there. But, I mean, like, so... The fans, basically, in a desire to fuck the system and create chaos, anointed John Scott as the person that they were going to vote for. He's the Sanjaya of the NHL All-Star Game.
Right.
To put it in that context.
For you non-sports people.
Right.
Sports ball.
Sports ball. And at first, John Scott didn't like the fact that he was being the joke of the, like, they're making fun of me by voting me as the worst player.
Yeah, I'll never get
into the All-Star game. And, you know, the Coyotes, his team, were like, you shouldn't really go because it's not good on you to go. And he was agreeing with that. And then as the fans continued to vote for him, they realized what a really solid guy he was.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. Like, you know, when you think of boxers, you think of a lot of degenerates, like people who beat their wives or have questionable morals, and like there's no
face tattoos.
There's no heroes in boxing.
No.
But the enforcer on the hockey team, the guy whose job it is to go and crush people, are oftentimes the nicest, most well-adjusted, the people who want to give the most to a community that they're a part of.
Right.
John Scott is a very nice, very funny, very blue-collar guy who doesn't make a lot of money playing hockey. I mean, you know... Comparatively to... I mean, he's
he
making...
makes more than us, but...
Right, but I mean, like, you know, his $90,000 playing hockey over the 11 years that he's played...
Right.
You know, yes, it's $900,000 over 11 years, but it's not... That's all the money he's going to make from this in his career, in his life. So it spreads out once you think that, you know, like, you might make $45,000 a year, but you can work for 30 years as he's only going to be able to work 10. That's sort
hopefully I won't be making 45 all of it.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, you know...
And
just
no
to put it in that context. Anyway, he's a very blue collar guy. He's got 2 kids and a wife who's pregnant with twins, and they were very interested in him going to the All-Star game. They thought, when are you ever going to have this opportunity again?
Yeah,
just go, have fun.
Don't you get a bonus for being there too?
Yeah, you get. I mean, some people do. They never thought highly of enough of him to include a bonus that he would make. Like,
right, yeah.
They should have, just in case. Like, yeah, here's $1,000 if you make it to the All-Star game. Like, that ever happened, you know?
Yeah.
Be like if you said, like, yeah, I'll give you $1,000 if you ever have sex with Heidi Klum. It's like, that's the safest $1,000 I'm ever going to save.
Don't make that bet on me.
But if it happens,
make that bet on me.
But if it happens, then you don't mind that much giving up the cash.
Right.
John Scott got voted into the NHL All-Star game. Not only that, he was the top vote getter. The fans have rallied around him as a good guy, a family guy, a blue-collar guy.
Yeah.
The John Scott has gotten around to it as like, no, they're not making fun of me. They actually like me now.
Yeah.
And who am I to say? Like, they want to have their fun and vote me in, then I'm going to have my fun and go.
Yeah.
This upsets the overlords at the NHL greatly. Because they do not want to be the joke of a John Scott being elected to the All-Star game.
Right.
So, very shadow government-y. The Columbus Blue Jackets, who are the host city for the All-Star game,
right,
trade a player to the Phoenix Coyotes for cash consideration. So it's a player for cash.
Right.
That player is immediately traded with John Scott for another player on the Montreal Canadiens.
Right.
Which is moving John Scott from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And then because they got 2 players in the deal and they only have room for 1, John Scott gets sent to the minors. So the NHL says, whoa. Wow. He's not even in the Western Conference anymore, and not even that. He's not even in the NHL anymore. He's in the American Hockey League. He's in minor leagues. He can't be in the All-Star game. And people freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
Gary Bettman, the most hated man in hockey, the commissioner of the league, is under a constant barrage from his fans who want nothing more than John Scott to be in the game.
Yeah.
And there is what's the thing in trial? Like when a judgment has happened before and you use it, like precedent. Yeah. There is precedent for this. Timo Solani played for the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and he got traded to the Eastern Conference prior to the All-Star game. Yeah. He still played on behalf of the Ducks in the All-Star game.
Because that's where he was when he got voted in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has happened like 3 or 4 times in the history of the NHL All-Star game. But the NHL was holding a firm line, like, no, he's not in that conference. He's not even on the active NHL rosters anymore.
Yeah.
He can't go. And people are writing columns and podcasting about it and blowing up Reddit. And eventually the NHL has finally acquiesced. And John Scott, this Sunday, is going to play in the NHL All-Star game.
Yay!
And I would say everyone should tune in because it is going to be funny to watch the very slow, big guy try and keep up with the much faster, considerable athletes.
Here's the thing.
And you know what? Nobody gets... like, you know when a position player has to pitch? Like when Chris Davis comes in to pitch?
Yeah.
When he gets a strikeout, everybody's excited.
Yeah.
Whenever anything good happens to an enforcer, whether he gets an assist or a goal,
everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy. The fans are happy. The players are happy. They're the unforgotten guy. They're very forgotten guys. And this is a moment for somebody like that. And it's a good guy who's if they win it, he gets a share of the $1 million prize, which will go to helping take care of his new twins. So, I mean, it's a win-win situation. And more importantly than that, it's a big fuck you to the NHL.
That's the big deal. Yeah.
Which is just incredible that the fans have rallied together so much and their hatred of Gary Bettman and what he's done to the hockey league.
Yeah. Well, and so the good news is I enjoy any story where they're like, here's the status quo, here's the powers that be, and not only does somebody within it, John Scott by himself just said, fuck you guys, no, I'm fighting to play. But everybody else is also like, hey, wait, no, fuck you guys. No, this is not what happens. Because, and again, I don't follow hockey, but the way you explain it, it seems very shadow government-y. Yeah. It's like, okay, how can we get him in a position where we have an excuse not to play him? Yeah. And there's a lot of moving around, and I bet the cash to the Coyotes
and it all happens on Friday afternoon when nobody pays attention to the news.
Right, yeah.
That's another thing, because on Friday afternoon, all these trades start happening involving John Scott. And by the time anybody notices, it's all also like, oh, sorry, he's already in the AHL. He's already in Newfoundland. He can't play in the NHL All-Star game.
Yeah. And he's back.
Yeah, now he's back. We'll be in the NHL All-Star game. I implore you to watch if you have nothing better to do.
Well,
it's certainly going to be more exciting than the Democratic debate, which was a big fat nothing.
Right. Did you actually watch that?
I did watch that.
And I was going to make the opposition that somebody that apparently the people do want is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Well, it's surprising. We talked extensively last week about how Debbie Wasserman Schultz
is the devil, yes,
is basically trying to hand wrap this election for Hillary by putting on debates at unusual times. It did actually end up being on a network.
I saw that.
It was actually on NBC.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that changed, because I remember at some point somebody telling me it was online only.
I think it was online only. I think people were saying, why is it online only? And then NBC said, well, we're running against football anyway, so instead
But the game was over by the time the debate started.
No, it was still ongoing on CBS.
The debate was at 9 o'clock.
I thought it started at 8 o'clock.
No.
Okay, maybe not. I read a story that said that basically they were getting shit about not having it on TV, so they kind of negotiated with NBC to put it on NBC, and they basically said, we're running against whatever, and we're not going to win that time slot anyway, so put it in. And that's our excuse for not winning the time slot. It's because it's a debate.
Right.
But, again, I saw nothing about it. There was no announcement it was happening. At the beginning, it was online only. And, And Debbie Wasserman Schultz also announced that all the super delegates are basically going to Hillary already. So now Bernie wins the first New Hampshire, and he's already down by 300. So
here's what's fun, though. Much like John Scott in the NHL All-Star Game, people are so sick of what is happening that they are rallying behind Bernie like never before.
Absolutely.
There were polls from 4 different news outlets that I saw post-debate.
Yeah.
It was like a Twitter poll from Huffington Post, from CNN, like blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Every single one of them had people voting who won the debate. And they all basically went the same way. Bernie somewhere in the area of 70%.
Yeah.
Hillary somewhere in the area of 20%. Martin O'Malley somewhere in the area of 10%.
Surprising.
I don't know why anybody thought Martin O'Malley won that debate.
Here's the problem, though, because we're from Maryland and we know how much shit he's full of. So when you see him, he sounds good. He looks good. He just isn't good.
So many times he just straight up either lied or said something in a way that was like... So at one point, he made a big point to Bernie Sanders. He was like, I'm the only candidate up on this stage who's balanced a budget. And not only did I balance a budget, I did it 8 consecutive years. And then Bernie tried to throw in some line of like, well, when I was mayor of Burlington, I did it 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
There's a difference.
Martin O'Malley's 8 years of balancing the budget, that's constitutionally required.
Yes.
Constitutionally required. And Hillary's up there talking about oh, nobody hates, the big banks hate nobody more than me. Yet 6 of her 10 biggest supporters are big banks. So
and to go back to
Goldman, Citibank, just down the line,
to go back to O'Malley, it is constitutionally required, and he didn't balance the budget. He balanced it on paper, but not in reality.
Right.
And by the way, if we need to close some gaps, let's cut some pensioners off the pensions, and let's push some debt service into the future. Or we're going to take what do they do? Bond review. They get a bond to cover the debt, and then not thinking that for the next 25 years we're going to be paying off that bond.
Right.
So you didn't balance the budget. What you did is you moved numbers around until both sides were equal, and didn't think about the cost. Long-term cost and the short-term on people who lost their pensions, forced to early retirement, that kind of stuff. But again, listen, Republicans and Democrats, we had the idea last week. Live fact-checking with a big screen behind each candidate where they present a point, click, 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 boom, untrue. And so he says... I balanced the budget 8 years in a row, and the Maryland Constitution pops up. Bloop, the picture.
Or you know what they do on Family Feud? Like if you hit the button too fast,
right?
Then it shuts out for 10 seconds. Right. Or I think it's on Jeopardy too. Like if you hit the buzzer too quick,
it shuts you out.
So you have to wait 10 seconds before the buzzer resets. I think that if you basically get PolitiFact or somebody like that, a trusted. Unbiased, neutral source to just sit up there. It's just I'm Lester Holt with the debate. We have Katie from PolitiFact over here who's going to be live researching while the candidates speak.
Yeah.
If at any point they say something that's untrue, their microphone will cut off for 5 consecutive minutes, and the light over them will darken.
5 minutes is a little long, I would say, because there's a lot of lies to be told. So let's just make it 10 seconds. Or... you get blacked out for a question.
And then maybe they just point the camera in the middle of Hillary talking about whatever light
goes off.
I think women deserve equal pay for equal work, and then just all of a sudden you see a light drop on O'Malley and his mic go off, and then he's just like, what did I do? And then it'll just a little banner at the bottom. It's just
fact check.
Maryland is constitutionally required to balance their budget every single year.
Well, see, and I don't know that that's a lie. What that
it's not a lie, but it's kind
of omission of the fact.
It'd be like if I said, listen, I'm the best looking guy I know the Anthem. Have been for every single year that we've been on the air.
That's just patently untrue. That's an absolute lie. That's an absolute lie.
If I'm one of two, then clearly it's not that
right. Well, and again, so I mean, I think though that the live fact checking would give the ability to to call him on it. Just like we were talking about the Republicans last week. Now it's that. It's like, well, Governor, by the way, not Governor. Why do we keep calling him Governor? But anyway, Governor, isn't it true that you are constitutionally required to balance the budgets? And isn't it true that you left a structural deficit of $1 billion?
Yeah.
That your
or maybe we do, like, if you get five in a debate,
right,
then like the trap door opens and you swing and fall to the bottom.
But here's the problem.
Like, how much fun would it be if Ted Cruz just is up there and he's just like, of course I'm allowed to be president.
The problem, though, is that, especially with the Democrats...
Into the fiery pit with you, Ted Cruz.
With only 3 people in the Democrats, like, 15 minutes in, it's a dark stage.
It's just Lesnar holding Bernie Sanders.
Well, no, because, I mean, I don't pull any punches. Bernie Sanders bends the truth as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about stuff, and he talks about gun laws. The gun law he was talking about was not exactly true. He advocates for some stuff on TV that you'll hear a much more radical version on the stump speech. Mm-hmm. But when he's on live TV, when he's on TV nationally, he kind of tones it down a little bit, which in my mind is an omission, just like O'Malley's omission. Like,
yeah.
If you're saying A, don't be like, well, let me explain B, C, and D, and then give you A as the watered down version.
Well,
so
here's where we're going. We have the Iowa Caucus.
Yes.
2 weeks from today.
February the 1st.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to see probably a good degree of changes in who's running. Because, I mean, like...
changes, yeah, about who's in the race.
Because I think even though... even that we talked about it beforehand, and even though you think that people will probably hold out a little while longer...
Yeah.
I think a really embarrassing show in Iowa might take somebody who's already low in the polls and...
Well, here's what I'll say, though.
I mean, like, if Carly Fiorina finishes 9th with, like, 1% support in Iowa, it's not like she's going to win New Hampshire with runaway numbers.
I think it will depend on what the front runner gets. If the number 1 person gets 30%, and the number 2 person gets 25%, and the number 3 person gets,
15.
20%, yeah, and then you finish with 1%, then you're out. You probably would drop. If Trump gets 70%, and then you're splitting the 30 amongst everybody else, I think they stick it out to New Hampshire. I still don't think Trump's going to get 70%. I think that people are going to walk in that booth and be like, okay, so Trump, funny, I enjoy it, but I'm not going to vote for Trump.
When it's time to actually vote for John Scott, I can't actually pull the lever.
I can't pull it, yeah. And
there's so many deserving people in the Western Conference.
I think that the other side of that is also that people want to get to the first vote that counts. Because Iowa doesn't mean shit.
Right.
It really doesn't. New Hampshire, a week later, or 8 days later, is the actual first primary. And I think what we're going to see is kind of like the Rudy Giuliani, where it starts going really badly, and then you withdraw the same night.
Well, also keep in mind, there's people who won Iowa who were never heard from again immediately thereafter.
Romney lost Iowa, and he won the...
Didn't Pawlenty win Iowa, or...
No.
Who was it? Oh, Santorum won Iowa.
Santorum won Iowa, and he was gone by the first Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
And Hillary resoundingly won Iowa, lost New Hampshire, and then won South Carolina, and then after that it was all downhill. It was all Barack after that. So, I mean, the Iowa doesn't predict anything. The best predictor is the first vote in that small town in New Hampshire.
Hartfield's Landing.
Who accurately... That's actually not the name of it. That's the West Wing version of that. But yes. But that accurately predicts the presidential election like 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's probably the place to look. But in the end, I think the best thing that will happen is the Republican field will get thinned out completely, at least after New Hampshire. Probably a little bit after Iowa. But the biggest...
Well, I think some of these candidates have to be running on fumes.
Well,
as far as money. Like money, yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
Like,
you make the big push and hope you get something back.
They're probably saying. I mean, many of them might say like we have it to get through New Hampshire,
right?
A push through New Hampshire to see if we can make hay.
Yeah,
because Iowa's such a crapshoot. I mean, like candidates who play there don't play anywhere else.
Yep.
So Ted Cruz might win Iowa, but it doesn't mean that Ted Cruz has the popularity to carry any other state
I mean, you got to carry New York or California or Texas or Florida or Ohio, and the crazy people that you have in Iowa aren't the same people that you have elsewhere. Again,
Right.
Donald Trump may do very well because it's his type of voters, but then in California or Texas, they're like, well, listen, the antics are nice, but we're not the extreme end of the party. We're the center of the party, and we're going to go with a Rubio, somebody who's an actual politician who can, again. The biggest question I would keep repeating if I was Rubio is, will Trump beat Hillary? And they are kind of beating that drum. But yeah, will Trump beat Hillary? Will Trump beat Bernie? We need somebody who can challenge them.
There was an interesting conversation I heard on a podcast not too long ago where it was both parties are kind of like predicting sort of a doomsday situation in separate ways.
Yeah.
The Trump thing has gone on way longer than anyone thought that it ever would.
Yeah.
He's not losing any momentum. I mean, he's losing some momentum, but he's not losing any of his, like, he's still riding way ahead.
Way ahead.
In the GOP polls. And they're terrified that he's just going to win delegates.
Yeah.
This will just, like, as much as they think, like, you know, like, oh, as soon as we get to, you know, like, states that matter, like, he'll start losing support and he won't get the nomination. But what if he does? I mean, everything... you would have thought that making a registry of Muslims would have been enough to eliminate almost anyone from presidential consideration.
Yeah.
Yet he only got more popular from it.
Yep.
You know, like, I'm going to build a wall so great and I'm going to have Mexico pay for it. And
yeah.
Like,
and by the way, his newest antic, which is renewing Operation Wetback from 1954, where basically just ask anyone who looks Latino for their papers. And if they can't produce them, we ship them to the border to a detention center. If they can't prove that they belong here, they go back over the border.
Right.
And we're like shipping them on banana boats to Central America or airlifting them into Central Mexico and then just leaving them there. And P.S., they're not all from Mexico.
Yeah.
There are people from all over South America.
Yeah.
And like, we're just going to leave them in Mexico. It's their problem now. Like, okay. But
this guy from Venezuela will figure out a way to get home.
But, well, he figured out a way to get here.
Yeah.
But there's just, it keeps growing. And there is a sickness in the country. And Trump is the boil that shows us that there's a sickness. That's it. But it's scary. It's scary.
But the same thing can be said about the Democrats, because they're kind of terrified about the idea of Bernie actually winning.
Yep.
Because Hillary was handpicked.
Right.
This is her time. She's going against a socialist and a complete rube.
And a crazy man with hair. Yeah.
I almost wonder if they're sort of just setting the stage for if Hillary has two very unimpressive shows up front. Like, if she loses Iowa and she loses New Hampshire big, maybe Joe Biden gets back into it and decides that maybe he's going to
throw his hat in the race.
Yeah. And then maybe you sort of get that, like, you know, like, well, we need to win this. We can't. Democrats are feeling it. Both sides are feeling it real bad.
Yeah.
Each of them are saying we can't lose. Because if the Democrats lose, then everything that Obama has done for the last 8 years is gone.
Yeah.
If the Republicans lose, then it's just going to further cement what Obama has done.
Yeah.
And grow upon it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to make everything that they fear worse.
Right.
But the problem is that nobody on the top matches up.
Right. With what the people
Yeah.
want?
Well, I mean, like, you know, Trump doesn't match up in head-to-head matchups against Hillary or Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
You know, Cruz is the same way. Marco Rubio, I think, makes the compelling argument for the Republican side.
Yeah.
Where he has the best chance to beat Bernie and Hillary.
Well, the guy I vote for over Hillary is Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
If it's Rubio Clinton, I'm voting for Marco Rubio. So, despite his craziness. Because I think that he's pandering to the base. I look at him and I think, you're pandering to the base now. Bernie doesn't pander to anybody.
Right.
Hillary panders to the people, because in reality, she's going to be a shill for Wall Street, despite her being independent. Trump and Cruz are just sideshows. Rubio's the one who's like, all right, I got to act a little crazy to get the nomination, and then, like Bill Clinton, I'll come back to the center. Once I get the nomination from the right, I'll come back to the center, and I think we'll hear much different things from him in August than we're hearing now. So,
right.
But
well, because I mean, here's the thing. I think with the Democrats have to be worried about, or something that's good for the Republicans and not good for the Democrats is nobody's jumping party lines to get on one of the current Democrats.
Oh yeah.
Nobody who's a moderate to anywhere on the scale of Republican is saying to themselves, there's somebody on the Republican side that they can at least somewhat identify with.
Well, that's what happens when you have 17 candidates.
Well, yeah, there's somebody there who you can, if it's Rand Paul or Christie or Rubio or Trump or somebody sort of identifies your pocket of conservatism,
right?
And nobody on the left does anything close.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a Republican, you're probably sick of Hillary Clinton. You're scared about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Martin O'Malley doesn't matter. Like,
yeah.
The terrifying part is that you elect a clown shoe as your nominee. You get Cruz Trump as your ticket. And then all of a sudden, from nowhere, Joe Biden, who jumped in the race late, is picking Elizabeth Warren to be his running mate, and you're fucked.
Well, and I think you run Cruz Trump, and all the people who are going to vote for Paul or Christie or Rubio looking at it and saying, well, as opposed to them, maybe Bernie's not so bad, and maybe I vote Democrat because I prefer the Democrat over that.
I would even imagine that people who would vote for who are Rubio, Christie, Paul, that sort of centrist Republicans would even be more likely to vote for a third party candidate that would not make a large show on like a national map,
right?
But would make enough of a show where they could never escape the. So like I think it was if you're going by like sort of party line thing, it was 43% Republican, 9% Independent, and 49% Democrat right now.
Yeah.
Is sort of how it's running. So if you're thinking that you're a Republican candidate, you're already down.
Yeah.
Hypothetic. I mean, these are obviously soft numbers, but like you're already down 43 to 49. You got to pick up that independent vote in order to make any kind of hay.
Is Trump the guy who does that?
See, no. Trump doesn't make Democrats jump over. No. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you have a truly crazy Democrat, Bernie might be the one who makes people jump.
I don't know though, because I think the problem we're getting into is that Bernie has to win the Democratic nomination to get to the big show.
Right.
But after that, poor people across the line, I think, will look to him rather than other people. I think that generally speaking, once we get through this partisan nonsense and we're going to a general election, it becomes much more socioeconomic and less.
But there's so many old line Democrats who are a little bit terrified about the Bernie Sanders. And you know what?
They're super delegates. They're voting for Hillary.
I don't really worry about it that much because I think that Bernie is at the... we worry about who we're electing president.
Yeah.
But they're the third most important part in a 3-part government.
Yeah.
The executive branch is one person, and their staff, which makes them more powerful because it's one person.
Right.
But they have less power than the judicial and the legislative branches.
Right.
Nobody's talking about the Congress race, but I mean,
because I think this Congress race isn't important. What happens is if Bernie wins the nomination and takes Warren with him, which he absolutely should as a vice president, and then takes everyone from the Senate who is doing good work and puts them in the executive branch, which probably will happen. Now we got to look at the congressional elections 2 years from now and say that the Democrats are coming from a huge disadvantage of a lot of open seat races versus the incumbents.
And a lot of people who would be surefire wins.
Right. Elizabeth Warren, who will not lose that seat.
Elizabeth Warren could die in that seat.
Yeah. But because she wants to do good work and she sees the executive as a way of doing that, I imagine she would come over to the executive and then, do whatever, especially the tiebreaker in the Senate. Great. Let's get back to 50-50. Elizabeth Warren's cast in the vote, and we have a majority without a majority.
Right.
But I think congressional elections this year don't matter as much because nothing's gonna get done. Everyone's gonna be it's gonna be lining up behind your presidential candidate. That's it. It's the 2 years from now. Again, the Republicans didn't lose or didn't win the Congress in '92.
I still think the Republican or the congressional and Senate races this year matter because there's always, when it's a new president, which obviously it will be because Barack's at the end of his term, it's going to be somebody new. There's always the 100-day push. Well, I need to work with the Congress that I got to try and make things happen in the first 100 days so that people know that I'm serious.
When did the Republicans win Congress?
2 years in.
94 instead of 92. When did the Democrats win back Congress?
98.
2002.
Yeah.
After Bush was elected in 2000. It's just because there's always a 2-year push, and I agree that the 100-day thing is going to be great, is necessary, and I don't know that either of these guys, whoever gets elected, is not going to do shit in their first 100 days because Congress is just going to block everything.
Yeah.
And DC will shut down for 2 years, just gridlock. That's why the next election is the most important one, because people are going to say, we're sick of the deadlock. We voted for a president. Let's get somebody in there who's going to do work.
But we shouldn't be doing that. Anybody who hasn't been voting shouldn't be in office.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who's been a part of this do-nothing Congress is just needs to go.
Boot them all out. Andy Harris being the first one on the list. Although I heard he may not be running again.
Ooh!
Yeah. So.
Ooh, I can't wait for that to happen.
I'm still on the inside of a few important emails, and then I'm getting side emails from people that are like, so looking for a young guy to run in the seat because it looks like Andy Harris isn't running. And I'm like, nah, not my bag anymore. I have too much dirty laundry out there now. Thanks to you, beautiful people in this podcast.
Now that we've had 93 episodes of Rob going like, listen, I don't care what your name is. I just want to know how you fuck.
That and the whole burning down the government part,
yeah.
is a little hypocritical.
The fact that you have books out there describing in detail.
Right, yeah.
Well, books coming.
Well, and building a universe. Universe building with all this stuff. But second one coming very soon. But I think the biggest thing that we can take from Iowa and New Hampshire and maybe South Carolina and Nevada Super Tuesday on the 20th is finally Martin O'Malley will drop his ass out of this race and we will stop worrying about him being elected.
I want him out of the debate so badly because he's so desperate.
He's Lisa Simpson. He is Lisa Simpson trying to... I
joked about it on Twitter when I was live tweeting the debate. I wish I had more time to rewatch all the debates and find the clips, but I feel like it's had to have been at least like 20 times where Martin O'Malley's just like, I'd like to say something about, and it's just like, we'll be right back after this commercial break. Like Martin O'Malley's like, can I get 10 seconds? And Lester Holt's like, shut up. Or obviously the first Democratic debate where it's when Martin went on his whole Hillary thing and he's just like, is this the type of person that you really want to have in office? Hillary, care to respond?
Nope.
Just people shutting down O'Malley like the O'Malley shut down Supermix.
O'Malley, who's she? I don't know about her anymore. Yeah. To piggyback on that, on something we talked about last week, someone else who's not going to be coming to the big show, it looks like Will and Jada, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith will not be attending the Oscars this year.
Nor will Spike Lee.
Spike Lee also said he's not going to go. Although he's super pretentious anyway, so I don't really...
I spoke about it last week.
Yeah.
George Clooney agrees with me.
The issue, of course, being for the Smiths that there's a lack of diversity, and they're not going to support these Oscars. But George Clooney also chimed in this week.
The problem is not with the Academy.
Right.
I mean, you can make the argument reasonably that there's a couple people who deserve to be nominated. We talked about...
Michael B. Jordan.
We talked about...
Will is one of those.
Will Smith.
Yeah.
We didn't mention Idris Elba, but he has gotten a lot of, I've seen a lot of people say, well, Idris Elba's one of the best actors we have going.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he nominated? Wasn't that a Netflix
movie?
Yeah. Beast of No Nation, wasn't that a Netflix original?
I want to say it was some online format. Netflix or Amazon, maybe.
I'm going to look it up here real quick.
Okay. But no, so Will and Jada said they're not coming because of lack of diversity. Spike Lee said he's not coming because of lack of diversity. And then Clooney chimed in and said, listen, we can't, basically what Cory said last week, we can't blame the Academy because there's not enough pictures with these, with minority parts in it, black and especially Latino parts. There's just not people there, which I don't know is all true, because I think there were some good performances, but in the end, what it comes down to is that it's an all white faces on the best actor, best actress, and supporting on both sides as well. So whatever point they have, I don't know that you prove it by not showing up. I think that you prove it by showing up on the red carpet and stopping it every interview. Okay,
so I'm just going to... Part of the reason why Idris Elba I love.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of the best actors we got going. I can tell you right now, just Googling it there.
Yeah.
The reason why that didn't get nominated for anything is because it's a Netflix movie.
There you go. Yeah.
And the Academy is going to hold a hard line against trying to allow Netflix in on their party.
Right.
The Emmys are already kind of like, there's sort of a sideways Hollywood joke talking about how the studios who've been making television shows forever are getting upset by digital streaming, Orange is the New Black,
but
transplanted.
It took big stars going to Netflix to do that. It took Spacey and House of Cards,
But, like there was a period of time where... just with the Emmys and television, where they said, like cable, why would you want to be on a cable show?
Right.
And then cable shows started getting nominated for awards. And then premium cable, HBO, started getting nominated for awards. And then now we're in the streaming class is starting to get nominated and winning awards.
Yeah.
And I think it all makes for better television regardless.
Yeah.
I'm not tuning in at a time to watch anything either way.
Right.
But it doesn't really matter to television whether or not I watch when it comes out, or if I pay $15 a month to watch it at my leisure.
Yeah.
That's sort of neither here nor there. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people in the studio system who would prefer that you watch Big Bang Theory every single week when it comes out.
Right.
But and not skip through commercials, but like
they need to adapt though. Listen, don't take the Blockbuster example. Don't fight Netflix.
But the movie industry can fight that.
Yes.
And they will, and they'll do it for as long as humanly possible before it's impossible to ignore. I didn't see Beast of No Nation. I heard great things.
Yeah.
Again, I said I love Idris Elba. I don't need much convincing that he probably did an amazing job and would very much be deserving of an award. But he's not going to get nominated if he's coming from a Netflix thing.
Right.
Because the Academy and all of its voting members are pretty much all people who work and run at studios who have a distribution model that depends on things putting out into theaters and people paying $11.50 to go see it, and then them getting back end and then eventually putting it on Netflix.
Well, it'll be a slow burn. It'll be a delay.
It's one of those arguments like the reason why you never heard about some garage band winning a Grammy,
right?
Even if they had like the best album, was because it's a thing about trying to make you buy CDs from major players.
Yeah.
You want to buy CDs from RCA or Sony or Warner Brothers or whoever. There's no skin in the game for them to include.
Right, and if they're the ones giving the awards away,
the silver Johnny Rotten and the Silver Biscuits or whatever your stupid band name is.
But I think that also that the membership of the Academy is obviously old. Like
is old.
The bulk of them is old, and it's
predominantly white.
It'll take a shift to when honestly those people die off, and the younger group takes in the we always have the bubble. There's always the bubble. Right now we're at the baby boomer bubble, where the bubble is retiring now.
Yeah,
and so there's less people paying in, but way more people taking it as it was reversed. But there will be a time when all of those folks die off, and then our generation will make up the bulk of the Academy, and there will be something new that we fight, and that the new younger generation will say, well, why aren't we doing? What about the implants? What about implanted shows?
At some point, they're going to be talking about virtual reality.
Right.
Because that's a progression that we're on the way to.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to make an incredible virtual reality movie that you watch on your like Samsung VR or what's the one that Facebook owns? Shit.
Blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
yeah,
the other one.
Yeah. But I mean, like they're out there. They're starting to become more of a less of a pipe dream and more of a reality. At some point, somebody's going to make an immersive movie.
Yeah,
where you put it on, you sit at home, and you're Jason Bourne.
Yeah,
and you're looking around and you're seeing the people firing at you.
Right.
And you're running and you're looking and you're seeing people chase you, and it's crazy. The Academy is going to fight that forever.
Yeah.
Up until
the
moment where the people who are young enough to truly appreciate it are old enough to be the majority of the voting population of the Oscars, that will be fought.
And it'll be a lag, though. It'll be just like now. Again, our generation will fight that stuff because we'll say you can't compete.
We might get a Netflix movie 10 years from now.
Okay.
And you know what? Honestly, we're probably more likely to get a Netflix like documentary or a Netflix short, or like if they did something like that. Like
the problem is they break up the documentaries into episodic stuff, like Making a Murder.
Right, but I'm saying like if they made just a straight documentary, there was the one that what's her face made, Hot Girls Wanted.
Oh yeah, which was actually really good. By
just
the way.
A straight documentary, Netflix release. 10 years from now, that sort of thing might be nominated for an Oscar.
Right.
I mean, there are requirements that go with having it being viewed in this theater to be nominated for an Oscar.
Right.
But, it's not completely unjustified.
Well, what was that movie that had the shortest, most, or least profitable run in the history of movies? They put it in the Dallas.
It's like a Katherine Heigl.
Yeah, they put it in a Dallas theater for a single run just so they could say it's a contender for the Oscar.
Well, no, what? So I'm going to have to look it up. But if I remember correctly, it has to have a week run in a theater in Los Angeles.
Right.
In addition, it has to be advertised with 3 billboards and 2 advertisements. In a publication that exceeds a readership of blah, 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 which basically meant, like, you had to advertise your movie in the Los Angeles Times, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, the known entities. Yeah. And basically the cost of getting an Oscar, if you're not a movie that's just going to have a national release, is kind of prohibitively expensive. Now, Netflix did do a national release on Beasts of No Nation.
Right.
At the same time that they were doing the Netflix release, but they almost did that exclusively just to get into a nominating conversation.
Right, which didn't happen.
They said basically, fuck it, we'll take a loss. We don't even care if nobody goes sees it.
I don't think
anything that comes from it is just bonus.
Right, I don't think that they're taking a loss. It's a part of the budget. You budget in and say, okay, the movie costs $1.1 million.
And there were articles released when it came out about how distributors and theaters were fighting the fact that they didn't want to show the Netflix movie because nobody was going to go to the theaters and see it if they could see it for free on their Netflix account. Not for free, but see it on demand on Netflix. Why were they going to book a screen with this thing instead of, blah, 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 blah. It was basically all just press for Netflix to have...
We deserve an Oscar nod.
Yeah.
And we need to change the way we do nominations. So,
but it's not going to... it's going to take forever for something like that, which seems so ubiquitous now, to change. Streaming is here. Streaming is a big part of the conversation. And there used to be a time and place where it was a joke if you were a straight-to-video release.
Right.
If your Speed 4 went straight to video, it meant that it wasn't good enough to go into theaters and get distribution. And you'd be lucky if you had 10,000 people see it. You'd sell it off with the package with real movies that other people wanted to see, foreign interests. Well, if you want Robin Hood Men in Tights, you're also going to have to take these 5 shitty movies.
Right.
It's part of the way the studio business did it, and straight to video was, you you were looked upon like you were John Scott in the
Okay.
NHL All-Star
Right.
game.
Bringing it all back.
Bringing it around.
Business idea, though. Let's buy a theater in L.A. and only show movies that are available on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon and say, listen, you guys need a theater run? We have a theater. And it's, you charge us basically nothing to show it. We'll make all money on the $5 ticket or whatever. But you love this movie on your screen, come see it on the big screen. And then that would only be there for
a week.
But it would only do it for a week.
Yeah.
It's specialty movies. You come for this week. This week we're showing blah. And it gets you in the Oscar race.
There are also Academy eligible festivals.
Right, sure.
So for short films, a big way that because obviously a short film
won't be in a theater.
Can't be in a theater for a week. You can't put a billboard up on the side of La Brea saying...
Billboards on both sides of the roof of the theater, too. Well, it's a package deal.
And billboards on each side of La Brea saying, come see the love letter.
Right, yeah.
This week.
Pay
this
$9
week at the New Bev,
Pay $9 to see 5 minutes of film.
Yeah. They have Academy qualifying festivals and stuff like that. So if you get accepted into Sundance, then your film is automatically qualified to be an Oscar contender for certain certain categories.
Right.
Just demand that. Here's what you got to do. Here's a 3-step process if you're really upset about what the Oscars is doing.
Yeah.
Not nominating black actors. Step 1. Stop paying to see big budget Hollywood picture or popcorn flicks.
That's not going to happen.
Because every single time that you make something like it, I'm not saying every single one of them,
right?
But if the rate of failure is much higher on big budget flicks than it is on low budget flicks, they'll start making more low budget flicks.
Right. Yeah.
So for every John Carter, you have to have 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah.
Until they see oh wow, these 500 Days of Summer movies are making a lot of money. They all cost $30 million, and why are we wasting $500 million on John Carter and taking a loss, taking a bath on it?
Yeah.
Let's just start making smaller movies, because if they make a lot more smaller movies, then they have the opportunity to widen the net of what they can put in there.
Right.
They didn't want to make Straight Outta Compton.
Right.
Straight Outta Compton was at 3 different studios, I want to say, before it was finally released. And everybody was concerned about who are they going to be able to put in this to open it. What star can they put in Straight Outta Compton to make people want to see it?
Right.
They didn't think that the movie by itself was going to be enough, but it ended up being enough. Yep. And people wanted to see it, and the people who were in it were really good.
Yep.
For the most part. I'm not saying they were all...
I didn't see it, so I have no idea.
No, but I'm saying they're not all, award winners, but they all did perfectly fine in the flick. Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., played young Ice Cube.
Right.
It's not like it was nepotism or anything like that. He was very good in that flick. He was fine. He was probably one of the better actors in it. But the more movies like that succeed, the more opportunities there are for people that you don't know about to become people you know about.
Yeah.
And the more that you... there's a lot of independence in the Oscar races these years.
Yeah.
The second part is allowing independents to be aggressive in how they show their movie.
Right.
So you gotta trust somebody who says, whoever is my star. We're making a black romantic we're making a romantic comedy where we have a black male lead.
Yeah.
And it's a white girl that he's...
Need to be okay with that.
You got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because if I went into... Say it was a known quantity. I just released something. It got into Sundance. It won the judge's prize. Sony brought me in, said, what's the next movie you want to make? We want to hear your next pitch. And I'm like, all right, well, Michael B. Jordan is an investment banker. And he falls in love with Zooey Deschanel, but they can't do it because she's tied up with a relationship to... I'm trying to think of a good, like, Latin actor of that, like... You know, like a multiracial,
right? Yeah.
Like love triangle thing.
Yeah,
and they'll all be like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
Yeah,
there's gonna be people because they'll all go into their back room.
Yeah,
where they're just like, "Oh, thank you for coming in. That sounds like an awesome idea. Can't wait to see you. Bye." And then as soon as you leave, they're just like, "What is the over/under on how much money we can make on this flick?"
Yeah.
Because there are going to be people who will not see it no matter what because it has a racial love triangle, interracial love triangle storyline, and you know it could be the most beautiful poignant film ever.
Yep.
Poignant film ever, and they won't give it a chance because they'll say like, "Oh, it's going to offend."
They will. Because they'll come back with notes and say, we loved your idea. So, we'd like Bradley Cooper as the investment banker. Zoe Deschanel. Like, well, but the interracial relationship's kind of the whole thing. Yeah, so we're willing to buy it if you're willing to make these changes.
Listen, we got $30 to $50 million ready to go on this picture if you put Bradley Cooper in instead of Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
And you're just like... But, you know, the whole thing was about this interracial...
Well, and the other problem is that it's a minority director, let's say.
Right.
And they say, well, I'll make the changes this time because that'll get me a major motion picture, and then I can do the thing in the next project. But you either go the way of Spike Lee or Tyler Perry and say, fuck it, this is all I make, or you can continue to conform because you want the next big picture. You want the next thing.
Also, one final thing, and this might not be as popular of a thing to say, but let's stop just denigrating pictures to white or black pictures.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the thing. You're perpetuating. You mentioned Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
So Tyler Perry will release a movie that will do very well, but it'll be a 90% black cast.
Right.
And the people who are white in it will be secondary characters who serve a very
limited purpose.
Yeah. They almost don't need to be in the movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're almost there just because he would feel weird if he did. Like, much like if you had a movie with all white people and not a single face of color.
Yeah. You'd be like, oh.
Like, somebody would eventually say, like, why isn't there a single black actor in this movie?
Yeah.
You'd be like, and so, like, somebody would eventually say to Tyler Perry, like, why did you release a movie without a single white person in it?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're right. Jerry Ferrara, come here. Like, you're in my movie.
Right.
It's like, I'm in.
He's
rips off the track pants.
He's close. Yeah. He's Italian. He's close.
But I mean, like, stop saying white pictures and black pictures.
Yeah.
Like, the more I understand that people have a natural inclination to want to be around people that familiarize themselves with what they. It's the I was in a sociology class where the guy said, here's a list of 10 doctors. They're all very qualified. They're all equal distance from your house. Which one are you picking?
Dr. Smith.
Well, and I said I'm picking O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
And they said, why? And it's like, well, if I know nothing else that separates them, I know I got an Irish guy there, so I feel comfortable. And it's just like, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not racist. You're not racist for picking O'Shaughnessy over Jamal.
You are racist.
Jamal Breckenridge,
but like
this
isn't why you're racist,
right? But I'm saying like they said it's just a natural part of human experience to want to do what their
tribe.
Yeah,
it's tribe familiarity with tribe.
But there's a lot of there's plenty of mixed race couples out there.
Yeah,
and it's a very interesting dynamic. And it's oftentimes when it's shown in films, it's shown as sort of like this, like, ooh, this suburban white girl is going on the other side of the tracks to be with this urban black guy. It's just like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Romeo and Juliet, it's the star-crossed, always the star-crossed lover.
They can be two people who just both live in Towson and, happen to meet each other and fall in love, and it doesn't have to be anything like... You don't have to make a special emphasis on the fact, like, ooh, he's an urban guy with a troubled past, and
right.
At some point during the trailer, he like gets really angry and fights some guy. It's just like, stop looking at my girl, and it's like dragged away in handcuffs, and the whole like, Jamal, like, you know, like you don't. The more we do that, the worse off we are.
Yeah.
So why don't we just make movies where the best actor that you could possibly find plays the role? And if it's absolutely necessary that you have somebody of a certain type, then, of course, I'm not going to, you know, you don't have to have Samuel L. Jackson play Robert E. Lee, you know?
Well, that's, again, going back to The Revenant from last week, there are certain roles when you're telling true stories of history that are just going to be what they're going to be.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're not going to have Leonardo DiCaprio play a slave.
Django doesn't make sense if it's Leo as Django.
Yeah.
You're just like, wait a second. Unless he goes Tropic Thunder, Robert. And,
but that's a
Tommy
very
Jr.
specific case scenario. But
I mean, no, he goes through the whole surgery. He everything replaced.
The pigment replacement surgery. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole deal.
No, but
and he'd go that far for an Oscar. I think he'd go that
far. Here's the overall. Don't complain to the Black Academy president for why the Oscars aren't black. Right. The people you want to complain to aren't even the people who are voting for the Oscars. Because we've already, like, I laid out a perfectly reasonable situation why Idris Elba, who is an actor deserving of an Academy Award, was not nominated this time around.
Right.
It's because he's on a medium that the whole of the film industry is not trying to get involved in at the moment.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't just be... I think it's almost more patronizing if you're including somebody just because you need to fill a quota.
It is.
Because when they have the Rooney Rule in the NFL... where before you can hire a coach, you have to hire at least one interview one candidate of color.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you know who you want. Like, you know, like, oh, I want to get Nick Saban bad.
Right.
But first I have to interview Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
Then you bring him in and you go like, Hugh, do you want to be the coach of the Browns? And it's just like, yes, I would love the opportunity. Here's my 15-point plan. It's like, thanks for coming in. And then next week, Nick Saban comes in. Yeah, because at the end of it, you just look at it and you're just like, well, I was just checking a box. Yeah. I was literally checking a box. Yeah. If we made a rule where it said that every single best actor category has to have one person of color in there.
Yeah.
And then we have 4 white nominees and 1 black nominee, and it's just like, remember when we were talking last week about Eddie Redmayne? And it's like the Oscars can't help themselves. They're going to nominate the trans role. We're just going to immediately go like, all right, well, Michael B. Jordan's in there just because they needed to get a black guy in there.
Right.
So...
discounting the work that he did.
He might... I don't even think he's really a serious contender for this. So let's just focus on the 4 white actors who got nominated who weren't him.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to make it worse by, number one, minimizing their accomplishment and making people think less of that accomplishment. Yep. Because it's being minimal, you know? Like,
or we nominate 10, and we always do 5 white, 2 black, 2 Latino, 1 Asian. Break it down so there's equal representation from the population.
Or how about this? Like, you know, like, I don't complain about the breakup of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a Cavs fan, or if I'm a Ravens fan,
yeah,
I want the best 53 people on my team. I don't care if every single one of them is Inuit.
Doesn't matter.
It does not matter. If you have 53 Mexicans who are the greatest football players alive...
American football, not football.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, you know, like, I don't care. I really don't. I have no discernible... You know, like, the days of where, you know, like, Michael Vick comes into the league and they're just like, a black quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is he, just a scrambler? He can't throw the ball. Like... Those things are slowly dying off because we've had the opportunity to have black quarterbacks succeed in the league. Yeah. We've had, you know, every single... The more that it becomes accepted, the less you think about it.
Right.
Cam Newton is one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yep.
People don't even think about the fact that he's black.
Unless it's racist in the Carolinas saying, he's a showboat.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah,
when you
yeah.
have Aaron Rodgers doing
you know, the races who are always going to... Races being racist are always going to happen.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes, you know? But, I mean, that sucks, and hopefully at some point it leaves, but I don't know. Donald Trump's still racing up the polls, so, like, why am I...
So Cory's message to the Academy is this. Medea is good for everybody. Let's give a nomination to Tyler Perry already.
Or if you want to give a nomination to me, ohtheanthem.com, Cory at ohtheanthem.com, Oh The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595.
And you can find me on all your social networks at Robert and Cheek. Make sure you check out robertandcheek.com for links to all of the stuff that I'm doing, including links to the books, which are available on Amazon.
Buy Rob's books.
Thank you. And new books coming in 2016, so look forward to that. But I am going to sign off because I got beach time to go do.
Great, everybody. Round of applause
CGI.
for Rob.
Oh, yes.
For joining us via live video feed.
And
all the way from...
You did a great job because there was a fly that you actually put in going in and out of our 2 frames.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, that fly was only on your side.
Right, you CGI'd
and then just so that people didn't think that something was up. I had it coming to my side, too.
It's amazing, yeah.
Listen, I'm a gifted filmmaker. I don't know what you want me to say.
Cory Baker, filmmaker. So I will be excited to be back in Baltimore. Actually, that's not true. I will not be excited to be back in Baltimore next week, but I will be back in Baltimore next week. So look for episode 95 coming up next week.
Oh, God.
Can't believe it. Can't believe it.
We're just 5 episodes away from that fat syndication money.
Yes. Anyway, so...
We'll wear solid gold tuxes for the 100th episode.
Yeah, let's do that. This thing weighs a ton.
I can barely breathe.
Right. What would happen if Cory won the $1.5 billion jackpot? A solid gold suit. Worth it.
By the end of the episode, I'll barely be able to get words out. But you know what it'll sound like? I think we done good here today.
Well, we've done something. I don't know if it's good. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining us. This is, as always, the Oh The Anthem podcast, part of the Oh The Anthem digital network. For Cory, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
And the Academy Award goes to... Not you, Idris Elba. You on Netflix, honey.
Aw, too soon.
Boo.
Too soon.
Boo.